Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST, every day of the week where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the Solana ETF market. We're going to get into that and more in just a little bit. But just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice. This modern market is exceptionally risky. We do not know anything for sure, so please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. As always, I have my legendary co-host Legendary with me today, but we have a very special guest. I'm delighted to say live on X, live on YouTube too, audio and video we've got going on. We've got Elisa, super expert in gaming, magic, internet money, the creator and founder of 44 Labs, advisor to 5 companies, ambassador to Ronin Network. Elisa, welcome to the stage with us. Great to have you with us. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. Super happy to be here with such legends, such consistent legends. I've been tuning into the show for a long time, so it's an honor. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you, Elisa. Really great to have you. We're going to get all of your insights onto the market in general, as we always go into it, but also trying to pick out just the things that you're finding interesting at the moment too, because I've noticed, particularly with like the Telegram stuff, that you've been definitely diving into more than us, and we've been desperate to learn a bit more there. So we'd love to hear some of your perspectives on that side of things. Legendary, just checking in with you before we get to the headlines. As always, how are you doing? I see you made a little special purchase yesterday. I was not consulted on this.
GM, yeah, it was a little impulse purchase and impulse PFP change. First day as a pudgy, first show as a pudgy. Also name change. I have a little name change competition going on with it. Legendary is going to stay, so you don't have to get used to anything new. But I feel like it's time for the underscore NFT part to go away. Moritz and Hunter have been making fun of me for the last 12 months or so to say, imagine someone joins the space as a creator now and just picks the name or the handle epic underscore NFT. Sounds a bit cringe. Can't argue with that. In love with Legendary, but the underscore NFT part needs to go. So also funky because you commented on my post. Nothing to worry. Legendary is staying. It's just the end tag, the NFT thing that needs to be removed and be replaced by something else. And yeah, the little competition that I posted actually got quite a bit of traction. I think there's like more than 400-ish comments under that. And I need to spend the afternoon to scroll through.
You know that you have to pick one now. You have to pick one of them. You can't just say,
favorite that's good. I have a favorite that's still available. So I'm not going to say that, so nobody can snipe that. But I've been entertained by some of the ideas.
Okay. Well, that's pretty interesting. Interestingly, you didn't... did you say this was an impulse buy?
Yeah.
Was it just impulse penguin? Because when we were talking the other day, I'm pretty sure you were not thinking of a penguin.
No, I wasn't thinking of a penguin, but I was like looking at the pudgy floor. I saw this guy. I was like, yeah, okay. Actually, been speaking so much about pudgies and reporting on the news side of things. I still have a couple little pudgies, but I never had like a big one, or I didn't have a big one in quite a while. I was thinking, to go down the Remilio route, something that I also talked to with Elisa. And I was like, I don't know. I like the Remilios, they're great, but sometimes a bit hard to tell apart who is who. And I like this pudgy, especially with the modern market cap that Juicy Jama did for it. It looks cool.
That's pretty sick. Shout out to Juicy Jama, very valued member of our community. Just did the edit within like minutes. Within minutes, we had that modern market edit.
There's been also a critical voice though. Apex was saying that this is basically the peak choice for someone being in a midlife crisis.
Yeah, that potentially
screams midlife crisis.
And you can also tell that the Blast airdrop is over now because there's these liquid funds available to just make these impulse decisions and to have the time to think about changing your name. Like 3 weeks ago, you're not making that change because you're too locked in, too locked into the market. Elisa, what do you think of this impulsive decision making? Are you vulnerable to these impulse NFT purchases as well?
I used to be definitely for NFTs. Like I've burnt too much money in NFTs, but no, these days I spend more on travel actually, IRL stuff. So I guess that's a bit of an improvement. But yeah, I love Legendary's pudgy. I didn't know he had like a rock and roll side. Like I'm liking the like leather with the studs. I like it. I think it's you too.
Well, you know, Lisa, it
Because,
doesn't.
sorry for jumping in, because you mentioned travel. Like whenever I travel, I have this black leather MCM backpack with studs on it, and I basically see it so often because I fly quite often. So I was like, yeah, this matches it.
I don't know. I was just going to say, just because his pudgy has it doesn't mean that he has it, or maybe it means that he does have to have it now. So let's see it, Legendary. We need we need the matching cap and jacket in real
We're
life.
getting like the hot takes, you know. We're gonna get all the hot takes. That's the energy.
Exactly. Yeah, we want to see that IRL very, very soon. But look, as always, let's get into the market discussion. We're going to hit the snapshot, which is pinned up top if you are on Twitter, listening or watching in. But remember, we're also live on YouTube if you want to catch us on stream. Let's get into it, starting with some price action. Crypto's pretty flat. Bitcoin at 61.3K, up a percent. ETH up a percent at 3.4K. Solana up 7%. At $145. We're going to get into why right now. First headline, VanEck files for the first Solana ETF, and Solana moved up 7% as a consequence of that. The block reported that many analysts have said such a move was inevitable after the SEC gave the green light to the Ethereum-based funds, but few suspect it will be successful at first go. I was just surprised that it was even filed this quickly, so soon after. But yeah, it seems like people think it won't be successful in the first go. But the fact that it's there now and it's on the table, it's kind of shows that the ETH ETF has opened the doors. We'll get into a bigger discussion on that in a second. Number two, Coinbase partners with Stripe to enable USDC transfers. They say they're building towards a shared goal of improving the financial system by adding support for Base. Stripe's network will have access to faster and cheaper money transfers and payouts. Will break the significance of that down in just a little bit. And next, political coins rally into the US presidential debate, but tank straight after. Trump was down 6%. Bowden was down 33%. Is this the real prediction market as we move forward in this new strange world where we're trading culture and life on chain? We'll get into a discussion on that too. Getting into the market prices of some NFTs, we've got CryptoPunks up a couple of percent at 27.7. It's kind of bounced a little bit now. Bored Apes up 5% to 9.5. Mutants up 13% to 1.7. DGods at 0.8. Captains at 2.8. Azuki's up 6% to 3.4. Penguins still steady around 9 ETH. And the Mad Lads are up 5% to 71 Solana. Noun's winning bid was at 2.3 ETH. Legendary, that is the price action. Those are the headlines. Is there anything catching your attention before we get into a bigger discussion today?
Yeah, absolutely. If we take a look at the Mintify heat map, there's actually one thing that's standing out to me today. It's a collection that I haven't seen in probably more than a year, and it's OpenSea's Genesis. I had the post yesterday. Now that people kind of stop farming Blur and nature seems to be healing a bit, wouldn't it be a good time for OpenSea to drop a token, which they repeatedly have said they're not going to do? But it seems like some people at least wanted to speculate on that option and have swept the Genesis NFTs, which were airdropped back in the day by OpenSea. And I think a trading program with rewards, etc., was promised, but that never really happened. And they are nonetheless up 11% over the last 24 hours and sitting at the point 005 E4. So a mini movement if you look at the actual price, but still weird that collection trending.
2 comments on this one. I'm pretty sure when they dropped me one, I sold this for 10x higher then. So it's been about 0.04 or so when they first dropped. So it might be up 10%, but still very, very low. Second point, when is it not a good time for OpenSea to drop a token? Everyone always says like, oh, now it might be a good time. It's always a good time, don't you think, Legendary?
It's always a good time because we are secretly still hoping for that to, get that redeeming moment from OpenSea and recover some of the funds that we burned purchasing JPEGs.
Indeed. Okay, well, that is pretty interesting. I did not know that that was going to be moving today, or that people might take a flyer and speculate on that. Elisa, would love to hear your thoughts on the NFT market. As you said, you may not be burning as much ETH in the NFT market now as before, but in terms of the market movements.
Yeah. By the way, my Wi-Fi is a bit shaky, so let me know if I cut out.
You're all good.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, my take is I prefer the culture collections rather than the utility collections. I think in gaming especially, we saw so many utility-driven collections, especially at the beginning of the year when they were doing well. So to be honest, if I was to buy an NFT today, I would definitely buy it for the culture. I would buy it for the PFP. My take is kind of like, it worries me when NFT collections try to get into utility. Like recently, we've seen Pudgy kind of going that route. My take is just it should be simple, right? Like the reason My Lady is so cool is because it's just culture that's behind it. And although they have like the cult coin now, I just don't think they'll ever pursue utility, because it just adds complications, and I think in a way it kind of like demystifies a collection. Yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. A lot of people have kind of shared their skepticism in the utility, because as soon as you have utility, then you kind of are valued against the utility that you're providing, especially when you have like staking involved and emissions of tokens. For example, we've seen that the meme land NFTs, for example, now it's like, well, if meme goes up, then the NFTs go up. If the token goes down, then the token goes down, then the NFT goes down. So it is a bit frustrating when those things get tied together potentially. Legendary, any other things, any comments on what Elisa was saying, or any other things that you're noticing in the market at the moment?
I think in terms of the gaming side, and there I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts, Elisa. I feel like we've seen a bit of momentum flowing into some of the gaming assets again. I feel like a good part of that was also driven by the success of Pirate Nation and the Founders Pirates and the Coinbase listing that they got, and other collections like managed to profit from that. On the other hand, also AI Arena had their TGE this week, which in my opinion went quite well, but wasn't really broadly discussed on the timeline. So would like to hear your read and what your thoughts are on like the current state of the gaming market and the gaming assets.
Yeah, I think it's complicated. Like we're definitely in a down market, but at the same time, we're seeing a lot of like small pockets of the ecosystem grow in users, like by pretty crazy amounts. So obviously, yeah, Ton, Ronin, but yeah, it's still at the point where like the assets are not really following, in my opinion. Like the NFTs and the tokens aren't necessarily reflecting this activity. Like Pixels is still the most played game, but we're not really seeing the token move, which I think is a shame. Like I'm a holder, so I was expecting some of that user activity to reflect in price, but it's just not the case. So yeah, I think it's more of a case of like when the market heats up, when attention flows into alts, flows into gaming, that's when we'll see things move. But for the time being, all we can really do is assess gaming by looking at amount of players. I think that's like the main thing, and how much they're spending on like the game itself. So Pixels is actually making a lot of revenue. I think they're making around like 1 or 2 million a month. And that's basically players paying for like VIP passes, which give them special advantages in game. So that's like the main way to judge it. But yeah, the token seems kind of apart right now. So AI Arena, now that they've done the airdrop, like we're kind of asking ourselves like, okay, but what's coming after? I personally didn't participate in the play to airdrop, and I wasn't a holder. I was there in the very early days of AI Arena. I was playing it. But yeah, not quite sure what their plans are for the token there, to be honest with you. Pirate Nation, big fan. They actually have like a solid kind of utility loop for the token. So like you will be using it to buy premium currency, which I think makes sense, and it's actually the model that many mobile games use today. So we should see a lot of volume on that one, I think, the Pirate token.
Interesting. Legendary, how does that make you feel when it comes to the gaming side?
Yeah, I like that argument, and I like saying that the number of players is something to look at. And I think Lupify had a post on that, kind of comparing where we're at with the entire size of the crypto market and how many players are there worldwide playing games, whether it's a mobile, on Steam, Xbox, consoles, etc., etc. And just given how small crypto is as a segment still with like daily active users, we can't expect mass adoption just yet, or we can't expect just the game to explode based on crypto usage alone, because we're relatively so small to basically the entire gaming industry outside of Web3.
Some of these comments just cracking me up. Good stuff. Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Let's get into it's Friday. So let's get into the Friday trends. We're going to get into like what kind of things I thought was most important this week. This is coming from my newsletter, which goes out every single Friday. It's edition number 128, which is quite a lot. And if you'd like to subscribe, obviously it's in the link in my bio. Let's see what has just gone out. These were the 5 or 6 things, and I'm going to be asking Legendary and Elisa, what kind of things do you think are going to still be relevant? Which of these things do you think are important to double down on in terms of looking into more or trying to, figure out what's going on a little bit more? So first, we have the VanEck application for the Solana Spot ETF. We're going to talk about that more as we speak about it as a headline in just a little bit. Number 2, Blast L2 launches at 2 billion FDV, trading between 2 to 3 billion. The vision extends to a wallet and on-ramping and compares itself to Apple. I think this is the thing which people have not fully embraced or haven't fully absorbed as part of the message coming out about the airdrop. Obviously, when these things come to market, everyone is trying to get hold of the coin, sell the coin, figure out, they're always talking about price first. Is 2 billion low? Is 3 billion enough? When should I sell? When should I take some profit? However, if you actually listen to the interview with Jen, which is about 45 minutes. I was about halfway through it this morning, but I've done some of the reading from the website. It's up blast.io/vision. It's got a very interesting vision laid out. And the thing that stood out to me was how he described there being an Android world and the Apple world. In the Android world, they kind of build the operating system and then ask other people to come and build on top of it to do all the stuff. Converse to that, you have the full stack system. So he says, unlike Android, Apple takes a full stack approach. They build everything from the software to the hardware and optimize across the full stack. This approach drastically accelerated the transition to mobile and resulted in the most valuable mobile ecosystem in the world. Then it goes on to say, the focus of the next phase of Blast, phase 2, is to create the full stack chain. So that is them saying, we are not going Android, we are going Apple. We want to own the full stack. Without giving away too much, the Blast Foundation will work with the community to create a desktop and mobile wallet specifically for crypto natives. So that's phase 2. And then obviously there's other things to come in order to own the full stack. He mentions things like a TG bot, a desktop wallet, a centralized exchange and fiat on-ramp. And then at the top of the whole thing, there's a bank. I don't know if Blast becomes the bank. I actually spoke about Blast as a bank back in when they asked us to send our money like in November or something. So that I think hasn't been absorbed. I wanted to bring that to people's attention. Next, Solana announcing blinks, those links that you can kind of click in and interact with quite easily. Next, we've got Arbitrum, who the committee recommending $27 million investment in 6 RWA protocols, including the BlackRock fund. So it's very interesting to see these DAOs starting to allocate their capital. Arbitrum obviously invested, I think it was 200 million in a gaming fund. Now they're investing capital in these RWA protocols. These DAOs have significant capital to invest, and we're starting to see that getting deployed. Elements announces their first investment fund, which tokenizes mineral rights. I think that's really fascinating to see these kind of these rights coming on chain. And then finally, the NFT market recovers and shows strength after significant liquidity pulled on Blur last week. People were really scared or fearful that when the big liquidity providers on Blur, when that season for farming would be over, that prices would tank, and that just hasn't been the case. So those are the 5 or 6 things that I've kind of identified this week as the things to take away and that I thought was most interesting. That was in my newsletter. But would love to go to you first, Legendary, and then Elisa. Maybe if you'd like to pick one of those things, dwell on it, and like what do you think's interesting to you there?
Yeah, unsurprisingly, I'm going to pick Blast. I think with Blast, it's becoming pretty evident that Base, respectively Coinbase and Blast, are trying to achieve a very similar, if not almost the same thing. And it's interesting because you have 2 options to participate in that. You can either believe in what Coinbase is trying to do and buy their stock, or you can believe in what Blast is doing and buy obviously a Blast token. I mean, obviously you can also do both. The question then becomes, is there a market, or is there a world where both of them have place to fulfill their vision? Obviously, in my opinion, there's going to be a winner in terms of the market share and in terms of the users that they manage to capture, which if you want to build basically that full stack vision from on to off ramping and everything in between, the user number will matter, and that ultimately will define the success of that ambitious vision. However, I do think that there's room for more than one player, especially if one basically tries to go for the mass market appeal and just get as many people in as possible, and the other one tries to specialize a bit more. And that the question is, seeing how Blast has started on that, a bit more degenerate, more Web3 native level, because ultimately they started with an L2 and Coinbase did not start with an L2. They started with the exchange business and built an L2 on top of it. And Blast is basically taking the other route with a different starting point. Just by the nature of that, they're already catering to a different audience. So it will be interesting to see how both those plans will evolve in the future and how those visions will play out.
Yeah, to your point about their, like, when you ask the question, is there space in the market for more than one? I always think the answer to that is yes, because if you're considering these L2s as cities within the country of Ethereum, or the continent of Ethereum is the continent, and then you've got all these different countries, of course there's space. There's space for different countries and different cities have different cultures. And even within different cities, there are different cultures in different neighborhoods. So I think the answer to that question is yes. But one interesting point I wanted to bring up is that in the Blast vision, they actually addressed one of the key criticisms, which is that it's only for degens. They actually say, like, criticism two. I'm reading from the website. If you're watching in, I'm showing this text on the screen as well. It said criticism two: Blast is just a degen chain. It said a common criticism of Blast is that it is a degen chain. Being a degen chain wasn't an accident. So they're definitely admitting to it. It was the focus all along. If you study the history of crypto, you'll notice the recurring trend of crypto native solutions winning. Every technology has a similar adoption cycle. At the start, only early adopters are interested, and it's not until practical value and utility are proven out that the early majority and late majority start to take notice. Growing past the small base of early adopters to the early majority is known as crossing the chasm. And there's this cool diagram here where it's got innovators, early adopters as being like the very early users of a particular product. And then there's this big gap before you can enter this early majority phase, which starts to, I guess, attract a lot more people. And then there's a late majority phase too. For technologies like chains that require a network effect to take value, this chasm is incredibly difficult to breach. Going after the early majority before you have built up sufficient infrastructure and network effects is a recipe for failure. So I think what their argument is like, look, we have to focus in on attracting like a really core group of early adopters and innovators, because if you just go for the early majority without having established that early group, you're kind of jumping the gun and jumping like too far ahead of yourself. Legendary, since you picked up on this, I want to come back to you first, and then we'd love to hear Lisa's thoughts on this, either as it relates to Blast or maybe picking a different topic to kind of dive into.
Yeah, that's a very valid line of thought to have, and obviously it's by design that the chain was attracting gamblers, because otherwise, when we moved into phase 2 and now have that PWA as the first soft version of what will be the wallet, they wouldn't have implemented scratch cards as basically the first and only thing to do at the moment if they didn't want to have that focus on the more degenerate, on the more gambling side of things.
I saw the scratch cards and I had to be like, oh God.
Did you see, by the way, Stats' comment on that? We went from on-chain casino, we went from casino gambling to gas station gambling now with Blast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, God knows where we're going to end up by phase 3 or 4. Elisa, what's your take on maybe this Blast conversation? And then would you like to pick one of the other topics to maybe that you think might be important to double tap on?
Yeah, so I actually really like that they addressed that. I need to deep dive and look into that. I personally sold my Blast, not because I don't think it can go up, but just I'd rather have liquidity right now.
Yeah.
And my main criticism was, I just don't feel like they're optimizing towards like the mass market. And my thesis for this cycle is mass adoption. So like basically, since there are so many tokens, the ecosystems that will win are the ones that are optimizing for new users and really taking like good action towards that, because I think you can have that idea and then not know how to execute. So what interests me about Coinbase is that it seems they understand what's needed, right? Or like at least they're experimenting with trying to onboard more users. So even just like the Stripe news, right? That's pretty big. And also I saw this good tweet. I've never seen him on the timeline before. KW, he's at Alliance now. He tweeted the most powerful insight I heard today. It's easier for people in developing countries to get USDC/USDT than USD. And I think Coinbase in general, Base in general, they're really like understanding these kind of nuances, and they're really acting towards it, like trying to push forward the industry. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Base. I just feel like there's a lack of culture there, which Blast has. So it's really weird how, yeah, like you said, there's like two very different styles. I think Blast could definitely achieve, like attracting people. This is anecdotal, so not really good evidence, but a friend of mine was onboarded. I onboarded her like a few months ago, and I showed her Blast. That was one of the first ecosystems I showed her, and like she a few weeks later was showing me how to use District 1. Like I didn't know how my way around District 1, and she told me, okay, this is how you do it. You need to set alarms. This is how you do it. This is how you get the gold. Blah blah. So I don't think people are as like stupid as others assume. Like normies can actually I don't know, like get used to these protocols, get used to these ecosystems faster than we'd expect. But yeah, before being bullish, I definitely want to see more than just like, oh, we're gonna build a wallet and on ramp. Like I don't really see like the work that's needed behind that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. To your point about people being less stupid than people assume, I definitely have been thinking that recently, where you know how people talk about how retail. Oh, people talk about retail as if they're like this fictional character that we need to lure out from not a dungeon. That's a bit dark. Like a cave somewhere. It's like, no, I think like we are the retail, and we've kind of figured it out. Like everyone is able to figure it out should they wish to. Yes, we need better consumer apps that make people operate seamlessly in this universe, but it's not actually as hard as people think, although some of it can be challenging sometimes. Look, since you're taking in that direction, I think it makes sense to maybe go to the Coinbase news, because they came out with this news today, which I think is pretty cool. I'm going to share it on the screen for the people who are watching in, as well as those. I'll read it out for those who are listening. So Coinbase and Stripe have partnered up. It says Coinbase is partnering with Stripe to bring Base's faster, cheaper financial infrastructure to millions of businesses around the world. This is precisely what they're doing. They say we're building towards a shared goal of improving the financial system. By adding support for Base, Stripe's network will have access to faster and cheaper money transfers and payouts. The partnership will launch with 3 key integrations, and these are the 3 things. Number 1, Stripe is adding USDC on Base to their crypto payouts product to enable Stripe platforms to make faster, cheaper money transfers to over 150 countries. And to your point, Elisa, like when you're talking about stablecoin transfers to loads of people who maybe have currencies which are far less reliable, like that's a very, very important thing. Number 2, Stripe is adding USDC on Base to their fiat to crypto on ramp to enable customers in the US to convert fiat to crypto faster than ever. And finally, Coinbase is adding Stripe's fiat to crypto on ramp to Coinbase Wallet to allow people to buy crypto instantly with credit cards and Apple Pay. So that might sound a little, even when I was reading it out, it sounded like I was saying the same thing 3 times, because it's just like crypto on ramp, fiat, stable coins. But I think the point is just making the friction between dollars and stable coins disappear, like, or as low as possible. Legendary, what's your reflection here on this kind of partnership?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty significant partnership, especially also if you think it through from Stripe's side, for people who worked in e-commerce and for people who worked on the board of e-commerce and crypto, and trying to get Stripe implementation for crypto products, for NFT marketplaces, etc., to allow people to even check out buying an NFT with a credit card. That, at least in the EU, has been tremendously hard to get Stripe to do that, and they often have refused that outright to partner up with crypto products. So I think obviously it's an amazing news for Coinbase, but I think it's equally significant to look at it from Stripe's side and to digest, what a change in the company's strategy and culture that means, that they partner up with a crypto exchange, a crypto company at such a high and strategic level.
Yeah, I think so. Elisa, did you want to come in here? Obviously, this is like an extension of the point you were making beforehand. Is this the kind of thing that you thought would be very important, and why you're very bullish on Coinbase?
Yeah, I mean, very bullish. I'm more just like, I'm in awe of like the amount of things they're pushing out, but I still have this like like kind of fear. Last cycle we saw a lot of problems with centralized exchanges, so I also wouldn't like glorify them too much. Ideally, that's not like where people store their money and all that. I think we just need to remember the big lessons from last cycle. But yeah, definitely really significant for Stripe. I mean, it really shows that like sentiment is changing, and maybe big companies are seeing like a kind of like a, we don't have a choice. We need to adapt now. Like we need to move into this market, or other people will, kind of thing. But I do believe MasterCard worked with Coinbase like some months ago. So there have been other really notable partnerships before.
Yeah, interesting point. I don't remember that one, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were other ones. There's no reason for these types of arrangements to be exclusive, right? The whole point is they want to try to partner up and get this reduce the friction between dollars and stablecoins like to very, very low. So the more people, the better in that respect, I think. Funky and Tiro, you have your hand raised too. Want to come to both of you for some quick takes before we move on. Funky, your hand is raised. What are your thoughts here on Coinbase and Stripe?
GM, pump my bags. Okay, just kidding. But I just put it in the comments. It was so timely that this came in my email today. Circle sent this thing about money is now open. So I think this is just facilitating USDC being sort of a global currency and being transported instantaneously, practically on global rails. When it comes to being used for payroll, for e-commerce, you name it. You can just read the little short email I just dropped in the comments below. But I'm a huge fan of Coinbase, so I'll just keep it short.
Just a quick question on that, Funky. Who sent this? This was an email sent to you.
This was from Circle. This was from Circle, the issuer of USDC, and they're kind of have a formal partnership with Coinbase. So this is all tied together, and I think just very bullish.
Okay, I'm just sharing it on the screen as well. So the open internet has enabled global trade and commerce to thrive like never before. However, a critical component underpinning these advancements is long overdue for an internet level upgrade: money. Okay, so what are they enabling? They're leveraging USDC for your business can open up new possibilities while saving time. So they're basically just trying to push enabling USDC, right?
Yes, and I think anything that's going to help continue to facilitate this, so even something like this with Stripe, and just because USDC is probably going to be the one that they use because of the partnership with Circle when you're onboarding the ramps, and I'm surprised that they're actually going to let credit cards be used, because for the longest time, Coinbase has stood against any kind of credit card. They only allowed the debit card. So it's interesting that we're just continuing to get further adoption and all this.
Nice. Very, very interesting stuff. Tiro, you have a take to make here. Want to get on to the next topic, but let's get it. Final take here. Let's tie it up for us.
Sure. For your guest, Elisa. So MasterCard struck a NFT payments deal with Coinbase. This was back in reading the piece right now, January 18th of 2022. It says Coinbase customers will be able to use MasterCard credit and debit purchases the crypto company's upcoming marketplace. So that was amazing. When they had their marketplace, which failed pretty miserably, unfortunately. But I'm still very bullish on them overall and on Base. Like Base needs to Elisa. I think that's how I pronounce her name. I'm terrible with pronouncing names, but like the ecosystem on Blast, that community is strong, and that's DGen community. And she said basically that Base doesn't have that strong community. No, they need to build it. Like when you go to their website, it's like build dexes, build gaming, build NFTs. That needs to be that. Bring the builders in, right? So these L2s are still behind some of these other ones like AVAX and some others that have been recruiting and watching games and gaming. But it's interesting to see how it goes.
I know what you mean with the take, and I appreciate Elisa's take as well. And I, in some ways, feel it too. But I think I would push back on it in respect that I think we're just in we're living in a different part of the neighborhood. and we're looking over at a different neighborhood, and we don't know the neighborhood. We've never really been there very often, and it looks a bit quiet from like our view, but the numbers are not lying on base. Like there's all kinds of stuff going on. I just don't think we've familiarized ourselves well enough with the neighborhood. So I think the TVL is outrageous. They've got outrageously good backing. They've got outrageously cool stuff being built out. I do feel like there's this distinct line in the sand between some of us who've been operating maybe more on the NFT side for a while versus and it kind of also tracks with like the Farcaster divide, interestingly. Or that's when I noticed when I started exploring Farcaster a bit more, is they're way more like base pilled, if that's even an expression. They're way more into it, and they're really smart. Like they often skew towards developers and stuff as well. So they're obviously builders, and I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. And it's continuously on my list to find out more when I get some time. So I appreciate both sides of that, because I think the perspective that you've both shared is fair. But that would be my reflection as well. Lisa, I don't know if you want to come back on that before we move on to the next headline.
Yeah, I'd say I've been like buying stuff on Blast for a couple months. Base. For a couple months, I bought Brett and sold it at 1B and then rotated it into another meme coin. But so there's a lot of like meme coin activity there as well. They have their own version of pump.fun or whatever. And I know a couple creators. I would say what's missing is actually the creator side. Like Blast saw a lot of creators, right? And I feel like that played an integral part into building culture there. Still not seeing like a Blast PFP or anything like that. Like we're really not seeing that yet. It's still early, I guess. But yeah, I think it's just the creator side that's missing. Like I can name like one very noticeable creator, which is Ken. He's been talking about
Ken's great.
Months. But yeah, apart from that, haven't seen much like creator-led stuff. So I'm excited to see that. Yeah.
Great point. And we actually kind of spoke about that yesterday. We were taking Bread's point where Pac-Man's kind of got this what's it called, cult vibe around him. But the thing about cults is that you have a bunch of prominent people maybe following as well, and Blast managed to inspire loads of prominent creators and elevate them, whereas you can't name the relevant creators for any other chain necessarily. But look, I think that's enough on that section. Interesting debate, hearing both sides. Let's move into the Solana stuff, because that is very, very big news too. I think this kind of surprised me, took me by surprise yesterday. Let's get into it. Crypto pundits doubts. Oh, that's not the one. This is the one. Actually, where's the article? Here we go. In fact, this is interestingly like very negatively worded article. Maybe which publication is this? The Block. Maybe they are not long Solana. This is the way they wrote the article. Crypto pundits doubt Solana ETF will find approval anytime soon. Why would that be the way you report the ETF application? Like, surely the headline is ETF application filed for Solana. Solana is up 8%, which is what I wrote in the snapshot today. Okay, so the first headline is what I said, which is that the ETF application was filed by Van Eck, who I think have a reputation of being like one of the first to file. And because they're one of the first to file, people have responded in a way that's like, well, there's definitely no guarantee at the moment that this would necessarily go through. And if it does, it would take many, many months. So it's probably quite far away. But here's some of the negative angle to it, which was shared by the Block. They say crypto pundits doubt the Solana ETF will find an approval anytime soon, at least under this administration. Some key bullet points. Legal experts say Van Eck's Solana ETF filing will face many hurdles seen by previous attempts to list Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, including potential market surveillance and manipulation concerns. Many also say such funds are inevitable, though it may require a change of leadership at the SEC. A lack of futures market for Solana and the SEC's opinion that the asset is a security are also likely roadblocks. Legendary, have we missed any key information here? Obviously, the market responded very nicely yesterday and jumped. I think it was around 7-8%, almost to $150 before pulling back just a touch. What are your thoughts on this filing? Did it take you by surprise as well? And what's your thinking?
Definitely did take me by surprise. I think the only thing that I would add is that we've probably seen a bit more extra heat on the meme coin market yesterday than on other typical days. That did not only fuel the Solana price, but even more meme activity. In terms of how realistic this filing is, given or comparing it to BTC and ETH, I definitely think that Solana has a longer way to go until it's quote unquote ETF ready. So it's not something I would expect to suddenly see come out of this year. But I also don't think that Van Eck is just filing it because they don't have anything, better to do. I mean, they've been great at capturing, Web3 mindshare and having the pudgy PFP and commenting in line with Web3 culture. This is something that companies also had managed to do in the last bull market, where there was Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Budweiser, and others. But that's one thing. But the other thing is actually to, file for an ETF and wanting to push that forward, which might be along the way. But on the other hand, BTC also had to start at some point, and it took us quite a while to get to that point. So I do think that's something to be taken seriously. I do think it's still surprising to see it that early. But I've been taking this news as like pleasant surprise, and not in the way how this article by the block was framing it, quite negatively, actually.
Interesting, talking about what we should be taking seriously or not. I found this article as well that was published quite quickly. I don't know if I can take any of these articles seriously. My reaction to this one was, is this even allowed to just, have you noticed how sometimes when these big news events come out, sometimes there's like these articles or reports prepared and people report as headlines just someone's report. It's like ETH to 10K headline Vanek, or ETH to $20,000 or $32,000 bull case. And so there was a report yesterday, I think, by GSR, who I believe are respected market makers, as well as other, I think they do some other stuff too. But they basically produced this report called "Is Solana Next?" yesterday. This is good timing, right? The fact that the ETF application went in, and then they had a report called "Is Solana Next?" ready to go. They said Solana has cemented itself as part of crypto's big three, and with the others having or on the cusp of a spot ETF, not only is it likely just a matter of time before Solana gets one too, but also the impact on Sol just might be the largest yet. Little note I highlight: GSR is long Sol. So basically, they tell you we are giga long this asset, and then write like 2,000 words with graphs of why they're so long. I think as part of this report, I can't remember the exact number, but they extrapolate out like they're basically implying a Solana valuation of like $1,000 per Sol at some point in time. Don't quote me on that, because I kind of stopped reading because I was like, this is a bit, I wasn't sure about it when I was reading it. But Elisa, do you have any thoughts on the Solana ETF and how these reports kind of get written and we all get hyper excited and buy the thing, and it's all on anticipation, right? It's all on anticipation. What's your reflection there?
Yeah, so just like disclaimer, I'm bullish on Sol, but I'm not like a Sol maxi kind of person. My main concern was regarding the ETF, like how decentralized is Solana, because I know that that's one of the biggest criteria. And obviously BTC and ETH, they check that box. So I just saw right now in the GSR report, there was a decentralization score, and they put Solana at second under ETH. Compared to AVAX and other chains like that. So I literally just saw, I don't know what the criteria is, but 0.4 decentralized score.
I'm showing that now as well on screen.
And then Ethereum is 0.5, which surprises me because I thought Ethereum was way more decentralized than Solana. Like Solana have shut down the chain multiple times. And I think there's like a big percentage of the total supply that's owned by the foundation. I don't know. I don't want to.
Yeah, there's all kinds of like disclaimers and source information of like how they come up with that. So yeah, that's gonna be, we'll have to unpick that one, I think.
I think that's like one of the main kind of bear cases for the ETF, the decentralization side. Yeah.
Okay.
And also, would they be endorsing the meme coin market on Solana if they? I don't know. Like, is that a thing?
Potentially. I mean, I wonder whether that's. I definitely don't think it would necessarily be an endorsement of it, but if I don't know, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what people do on Solana apart from meme coins and NFTs. This might be really, really hot take, but genuinely.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, clearly, I think the biggest use case at the moment is the meme coin market. That's what gets people most excited. I do think that there are a bunch of consumer products that are like trying to get built out.
Nice. Yeah.
But let's see. Funky, your hand is raised. What's your thought here?
So on the Solana thing, first, let me just start with VanEck. I think they understand the Web3 culture intimately well. Their Bitcoin ETF is the ticker is HODL, HODL, right? So, and then when they switched, if you didn't even see if you looked in close on the VanEck, when they switched to the Pudgy, it even says VanEck intern. So, I mean, they are clearly, and they understand it's an attention game. There's no way this ETF is going to pass. I would even argue it might be years until we see an ETF, because typically with these things, like we saw with Bitcoin, like we saw with ETH, you're going to have futures trading for a long time, which the Block article noted, before you even get to a spot ETF. Now, I love the move. No one's going to deny that. I think as someone who lives in the US, I mean, it's great. I think it's just a signal to the market. But in all seriousness, I don't think it's necessarily going to happen for a very long time. But I do appreciate how much VanEck has a finger on the pulse of Web3 culture. That deserves a shout out on its own.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, they do have a Pudgy Penguin as their profile picture right now. So that's pretty wild. Look, we want to get into the final headline. And I think this will be kind of interesting too on the Politify. I think that's the way to pronounce this sector, and link it maybe to the debate, the US presidential debate that took place yesterday. But before we do that, let's hit the Web3 roundup to get you up to speed with everything else that's been happening in the space in the last 24 hours. There was some actually big news that didn't make the headlines today that I want to point out for you. Number one, Vitalik funds Mega ETH, who raised $20 million from other notable investors like Kobe and Hasu as well. Mega Labs has raised $20 million in a seed funding round from Dragonfly, Vitalik, Joseph Lubin, and others. The idea of the Mega ETH blockchain emerged because most Ethereum EVM compatible blockchains can only achieve 3-digit transactions per second, while Mega ETH aims to achieve 100,000 transactions per second. So the chain building will go on; it will never stop. And this is another one funded by some very prominent people. So why hold ETH when you can hold Mega ETH? That's one quote I saw written on the timeline earlier. Number two, UFC partners with Block Asset to power digital fan engagement platform. To Elisa's point, asking what's going on Solana apart from meme coins, stuff like this. So this is actually a Solana project. So that's pretty interesting to see. Next, Xeron launches Zero Network testnet, gas-free layer 2 rollup on ZK Sync. Next, Coinbase sues the SEC and FDIC over a freedom of information requests. When Cat Meme Coin, this is the meme coin by Jupiter, they acquire the largest Cat X account with 2 billion monthly impressions. What a fantastic investment for the meme coin. Next, Chimp has announced Minecraft server launch. That's pretty interesting, focusing on that gaming side of things. And next, Claynosaurz leading the Collision Awards, voting for excellence in animation versus Sony, Disney, and Pixar. Shout out to Claynosaurz. They really do excellent animation stuff. Really enjoy seeing some of their clips and stuff. So well done to them. That's it. That's it from the Web3 Roundup, Legendary. We've got the one main headline to come, which is political coins rally into the US presidential debate and tank after. So from what I can tell, I'll just set this up for you guys before we chat about it a bit. I don't want to dwell too much on the actual nature of the debate. I saw some commentary after it. I didn't really want to watch it because I get really embarrassed watching other people embarrass themselves. So I can't watch things where other people are being really embarrassing or doing stuff like really, really bad. So I just decided to not watch it all, but I saw some of the commentary. But this is what happened to the coins, and maybe this is what we'll focus on and consider what the impacts are of the rest of the election cycle. So Trump seems to be down 9% as not as a consequence of the debate, but after the debate, whereas Biden got wrecked. Frankly, I think it's down 44% in 24 hours now. It was as high as 0.18 Sol just when was this? This was last night, and now down to 0.07. Legendary, what's your thinking here? Is going to be like some reasonable cadence where we rally into debates on excitement and then just dump on either one? We actually saw this with Ansem's boxing thing, where I think he and his opponent had a coin, and I think they rallied into the match, and then they both just sold off after. Even the winner sold off in the end. What's your thinking here? What's going on? What's the kind of takeaway from the fact that these huge real world events are getting tokenized via the actors in them?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to comment on the debate either. I booked my flight to the States. I have my travel authorization. Definitely not going to comment on that. In terms of the market reacting to it, it's perfect attention trading. You have the run up to the big event, to the debate that everyone was looking forward to, and no matter the outcome, then the attention is gone at least for a bit, and it will negatively affect both camps because there's like more than one token in either camp, right? And as you said, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to kind of swing trade that leading up to the actual election in fall. And there's definitely going to be more debates, more memes going viral. Obviously, the actual election itself, still the question, will Biden ultimately be the final candidate or not? So for people who want to follow that intensely, I think if you, I get your point fully to be like, yo, it's too embarrassing to watch. But if you want to follow everything and all of it, then why not connect it with the market and not actually trade on it as well? Because I do think that there's going to be a lot of swing trading that can be done here.
Do you know what I saw was funny? Easy tweeted, like, I'm going to be watching the debate and like just listening for great ticker names. Like if someone says something wrong, if Biden like didn't say something correctly, you know that it would have made a ticker like pretty. I'm pretty sure. I think I might have seen a tweet that there were none in the end. But I mean, that's going to be fascinating as well. Elisa, what's your thoughts here? Like the fact that the way that these meme coins are just tracking real life events, whether they're the presidential elections or whether they're other ones as well that just prominent people are participating in. What's your thinking with how to do this? Are you trading these yourselves? What's your perspective?
Yeah, no, I'm not trading them. But I mean, even for like football matches, people love to bet. So I don't think that's going anywhere. And yeah, I find it really interesting. Like we're really entering an era of like everything is going to be on chain. Even things like this, even if it's really degen. But yeah, I'm not participating. I don't even keep an eye on these meme coins, to be honest, but it is really interesting to see. And yeah, I guess it's always like a sell the news kind of event. Yeah, don't have much info on this one.
I think that's fair enough. I similarly, I mean, in the end, as you say, it's trading attention. If your attention is not naturally placed there anyway, then you probably want to focus on the things where your attention is placed. Legendary, what would these things? What would be a buy the event? Would someone need to actually mention the ticket, like the ticker, in any way? Like, is there any reason why these things just wouldn't sell off all the time straight after? It's just a game of chicken, isn't it?
It kind of is a game of chicken, but I like what Elisa was saying in terms of people are betting on football matches, people are betting on other things, and that's like basically a more modern form of a betting market.
Yeah, but when you bet on football matches, someone wins. Like the winner wins. Here, the winner loses as well.
Wait. But like you still had a massive upside with both tokens running up. You're basically not betting on the outcome of the match. You're betting on the attention run up before the match. Like that's the difference. And you still could. I mean, obviously, there's still things could happen that would pump a ticker to infinity. Imagine, I don't know, Trump misspelling Biden's name and calling him Biden or whatever. That would pump the token, obviously.
Which one would run?
Which one though? Which one though?
Both. No, but like I think it's interesting that this betting dynamic is shifting to betting on the attention running up to the event, and the actual event then doesn't really matter too much. The winner still wins by losing less in token value, as we could see. So you still have like a better basis if you have not sold off before the debate to continue betting on your token that you are holding. But I like the betting analogy quite a lot, to be honest.
So what does it take, like psychologically, like what does it take to understand this new way of betting? You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like reversed. So for the average person, is that clear? Like, I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think that it's clear for the average person, because probably the average person would still come in with the mindset of, if I think Trump wins the debate and I buy his coin, then my coin certainly will do better than the loser's coin, which it did. But probably the average person would factor in that it means doing better means losing less and not winning, actually.
I'm wondering what's the right question to be asking here? Because winning the debate doesn't mean winning the trade, I don't think. So I think you started to explain it well, Legendary, when you were saying something like you're betting on the fact that there will be attention, that that your horse in the race will have eyes on it and be able to attract the attention in the run up to the event. But once the event is either taking place or about to take place or just taking place, attention is going to go elsewhere. So yeah, I understand why people would be like, well, what precisely were we betting on? Because I think people would traditionally think, well, the event is what you're betting on. What is the outcome of the event? But this is not an event-based bet. This is an attention-based bet pre-event. Do you think that is that kind of where you're going with it?
Yeah, you're kind of betting on the mind share that certain topics get.
Yeah.
So are we gonna see like tokenized TikTok trends when Gen Z pulls into Web3?
Why not? Actually, yeah.
I don't know, Elisa. I mean, what do you are you on TikTok? Are you operating in that universe at all? Like, I'm relatively far away from that now. What's your perspective on it?
I'm kind of in out. I used to create on TikTok, so not as much scrolling, and now I'm like not creating on TikTok. I'm more scrolling. And yeah, like for example, there's a viral song right now, Reem. I don't even know why I'm mentioning this, but it's Essex. Like it's like a whatever. So like I easily see like a Reem ticker, like 100%.
Do you think people on TikTok, from what you've seen, are that way inclined? Are they interested in it? Is there any desire for that, do you think?
I mean, if we go with the idea that like, when retail comes in, the first thing they'll buy is memes because it's like the first thing they see, or it's what we're familiar with from last cycle. I think memes would probably be what they go to first. Like even just the Solana ecosystem in general, it's really interesting because a lot of Solana people have never made it to other ecosystems. They've stayed within Solana. And a lot of these people are like recently onboarded or like onboard all of their friends. Yeah, I mean, I do see like a Black Mirror episode kind of phase of the cycle where like TikTok trends come onto Solana memes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how we're changing the monetization of trends. Like, look at something like Hoktua Girl and all the attention that she got. There is a fan page on Instagram that someone created, and that fan page is selling merchandise, caps, T-shirts, etc. And that person was pretty fast to do that. I'm thinking, yeah, probably, they do this and they make 10, 20 grand or whatever. But the person who did the meme coin first and got the meme coin attention is printing a shit ton more money than the first person to just do merch based of that meme. So it's interesting how we're moving into like this hyper monetization, and how basically meme coins allow you to do that without even having to sell an actual product. You just sell the attention.
Yeah, imagine having to print a T-shirt. That sounds like a lot of work. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Look, I think it's a very, very interesting conversation, whether it's about the presidential stuff, which we'll kind of be around and keep an eye on, because there are these 2 or 3 prominent coins now that are going to be circling around us. But also there's that bigger trend. And I think that's the bigger thing we're trying to analyze here as part of that conversation, which is the hyper financialization of attention. So look, that's the end of the show, guys. We've run out of time. Hope you enjoyed it. We are obviously, as a reminder, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. BST. We're live on X. We're live on YouTube. You can get us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts too, if that's where you want to catch up with us. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, thank you to my legendary co-host, Legendary. Elisa, thank you so much for joining us. How can we keep in touch with all things Elisa and what you're up to?
Honestly, my ex, I'm in the Twitter spaces right now. So yeah, that's where I'm most active. And thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the invite. And looking forward to more Modern Market episodes.
Awesome. Appreciate you. Definitely follow Elisa for all thoughts on gaming and general market perspectives too. Right. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday. Take care, and we will see you on the other side. Bye-bye.